Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What is a creepy paranormal experience that has happened to you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Maybe 8 or 9 years ago, my younger brother was playing Xbox with our neighbor online. He was home alone and started freaking out, saying he could hear someone upstairs. A few minutes later, he showed up at our house. He was probably 15 years old at the time, almost in tears. My brother, the boy, and I headed over to his place. As we went in, his dog was out walking in the kitchen, so I figured it was just the dog. Then we heard clear as day someone walking around upstairs. Instead of leaving, I didn't want to act scared or nervous, so I slowly went up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, I could hear someone walking in his parents' room and like a scuffling sound. Everyone was kind of behind me, farther down the stairs, and heard it too. The scariest part was the dog started to whine. I yelled for anyone in the room to come out. After a minute or so of not hearing anything, we all rushed in. The room was empty, the closet was empty, and the bathroom was empty. Needless to say, he spent the night at our house. I've told this story here before. I used to take walks in the woods of Appalachia quite a bit when I was younger. I've told the story of turnarounds, so this time I'll just remember the basement. I came across a really old clapboard house. It was so old and decrepit that the floors had fallen in, and only parts of the outside walls and some of the chimneys still stood. I looked at it for a minute, and then a thought popped into my head. If I go around the right side and around the back, I'll find some stairs leading down to the basement. I'm already here, I might as well go say hello. I walked around the house's right side and found the stairs. I went down them, and I knocked on the door. After the second knock, I hear someone on the other side scrabbling at the locks on the other side, like in a huge rush. I heard them mutter to themselves, "Just a minute, don't go." All at once I realized where I was, what I was doing, and the fact that someone was about to open the door. I got the hell out of there fast. I've never been back. This is long, but please bear with me. This is the creepiest thing to ever happen to me. I have a close friend whose family owns quite a bit of land that we regularly hunt and camp on. Normally, we just go up for a few days or a weekend or whatever and bullshit in the woods and drink a bit and shoot for target practice in the summer. The property is set up so that there's a large clearing about 300 yards long and 200 yards wide, where they have 2 travel trailers and 2 barns that we stay in and keep all the four-wheelers and broken stands and feeders and corn and stuff in. On the west side of the clearing are probably 15 to 20 rows of pine trees that were planted for an agricultural tax write-off, and that they're about 150 yards long. To the east and north are the dense woods we hunt. Without fail, every time, my friend's dad will call around 10:30 to 11 p.m. and challenge one of us to walk all the way from the trailer to the very end of the last pine tree row, where there's a corner formed by 2 fences meeting, unarmed, and with no light source whatsoever. It's incredibly spooky, and none of us have taken up his challenge. This is where it gets spooky. One night, we are up at the property, and it gets to be about 2 a.m., making me and my friend leave his younger brother and our other friend in the trailer to go double-check that the barn is closed up and everything is as it should be. On the way out, I grab my 30-30 rifle and he his 9mm. We make it around the barn, locking everything up, and decide to check the edges of the woods for any hogs or coyotes that may be foraging. We're making a big loop around the edges of the tree rows, back to the trailer, casually glancing down them for any sign of animals. When we hit the last row, we freeze dead in our tracks as we see a large animal, probably a deer, roughly 2/3 of the way down the row. Slowly, we make our way about 45 to 50 yards down the row, only to find that this wasn't a deer. In the pale moonlight, we're able to make out that this deer has no antlers, long pointed ears, and legs like a dog. Essentially, it appeared to be a massive coyote. It moved incredibly slowly, like it must have taken it 30 seconds to kind of crouch its front legs and head down like a dog does to look at us. We have taken a knee, with both our guns trained on this thing, whispering to each other about what this is, debating whether or not to fill it full of bullets. We're too scared to even shine a flashlight on it. It slowly turned to stand broadside to us, then even more slowly turned its head first back toward us, then again the rest of its body, so it was again facing straight at us. We noticed that its legs were extremely long and skinny, and its body was built like a deer's rather than a coyote's. But it definitely had a coyote's head and tail. We had decided to blast this thing straight to hell, and we again raised our guns, and I pulled the hammer on my rifle to full cock, basically off safety. My friend decided our best bet was to aim at its upper chest, count down from 3, and then shoot simultaneously. He started counting breathlessly, and I'm sure we were both drenched in nervous sweat, anxious to shoot, but when he said 2, there was an extremely loud crash in the dense woods to our right, like a widowmaker falling. We both spun, guns up, sure we were being ambushed by another huge coyote deer thing. We whipped back to where the animal had been standing, clicked on a flashlight, and it was gone. That was it. It had just vanished. We checked and double-checked the area and only found matted grass where it must have walked. We were both absolutely stone-cold sober at the time, and both double-checked with each other months after to make sure of what we saw. The next morning I went out to the crack of dawn to try and hunt some hogs, and posted up at the most active pig spot on the property, and the woods were impossibly still and quiet. I didn't even hear a hog or squirrel or anything other than some bird move all day, which is very unusual. He mentioned this to his dad, who got quiet and simply said that strange things live and happen on that property. It still rattles me to this day, and I have absolutely no explanation or even an inkling of what it could have been or how a coyote would even get that big or disappear so fast and quickly after moving so slowly before. So what could the possible outcomes have been? Imagine if it was like a drunk person or woman like that somehow stumbled onto the property and you just shot and killed her, or a Sasquatch, and then you would have been famous. But instead, there was a scuffle in the woods, you turned and it was gone. So now we just have to wonder and speculate what it really was. What do you guys think it was? Drunken human, Bigfoot, wife of Bigfoot, or just a mangy deer? I don't know. A friend claimed to have made contact with something not of this world. I, being the inquisitive type, asked her to ask it to demonstrate itself. She said that it did not do parlor tricks, so I laughed. Told her to tell it that I thought it was a load of BS and that I went to bed. It should be noted, the friend in question was hours away and could not have caused what happened next. I was woken up by an icy cold jab on my left leg. It was like someone soaked a Q-tip in liquid nitrogen and then touched me. When I stirred, it stopped. And every time I started to doze off again, it started until I got up. There was a message from my friend. She said, "It says it hopes you'll believe in it now. And also, you sleep rather heavily." About 10 years ago, I lived in a free house. I know, right there, I should have known better, but I was a broke college kid. The caveat was managing the small, secluded property with some pastures, a barn, and some school horses needing medical care or R&R. No rent, no utilities, free Wi-Fi, sold. The house was small, likely built in the 50s, yet it had a massive basement packed full of belongings from countless previous persons who'd all left the property at some point or another. I'd never met any of them, not even the girl who'd been there right before me. After a few months, I got a wild hair and started cleaning. Everything that wasn't useful to the house or the barn got dumped. I found more clothes and books and bits of furniture than could fit in my truck to donate. Things had been quiet up until the cleanup, though. Over the following weeks, I kept seeing shadows in front of the windows whenever I was outside. Tricks of the light, surely. Or I'd blame it on a cat and think nothing more of it. Then the lights in the basement kept turning on, and I could only convince myself so many times that I forgot. Even though I began using that space less and less, I did laundry off-site, even to avoid the basement, as I felt increasingly uncomfortable down there. Then one night in early October, I was forced out. I'd been doing homework in my bedroom all evening. It was nearly 11:30, and the cat was tucked with me in bed. I saw the stairwell light pop on, and then the sound of what I can only describe as heavy boots slowly climbing the wooden stairs. The cat panicked first. It tried to bolt for the closed window as an overwhelming feeling of dread came over me. Something in me screamed that if I didn't leave right then and there, I never would. I grabbed my keys and ran for the front door, left it wide open, and jumped into my truck. The poor cat hopped in too. I sat there for a few seconds, staring at the house, and saw nothing. So I left for a friend's place. I'd never been so scared. I went back the next day. The door was still open, the lights were still on, and I loaded everything I could grab in 10 minutes. I put in my 2 weeks and finished the job while living off-site. Never went back into the house ever again. No one had signed up to live there by the time I left, and I hope they demolished that house. Many years ago, my brother and I would have our friends over for LAN parties. They'd just haul their computers and consoles over to our place, and for the weekend, whenever we were like 10 to 12 years old. Parents were gone for the night, so we were home alone, staying up late, just gaming. There was a moderately strong storm going on around 1 a.m. that made the power go out. We were all using desktop PCs, no laptops and no battery backup devices. Somehow, my PC started booting back up before the power came back, and it loaded into one of those really old school chat rooms. It was just a large black screen with white lines separating a list of users and a place to type. The only users were us, guests, and another user named Bad Luck. Bad Luck typed, "Tonight was the worst night of my entire life, and now I'm going to make it yours." After he typed that, the power came back on, and my brother and friends will swear up and down that they had heard something at the back door, but wherever we checked, nothing was there. The whole thing was legitimately terrifying for a 10 to 12-year-old to experience. I'm just glad that multiple people around who also witnessed. We definitely couldn't get to sleep that night, but we tried to just put it out of our minds and play games again. Late to the party as always. I've also told this story before, so I'll give it a gist, and if anyone wants to know more, I'll try and answer. My friend and I went camping in 2010 on the Utah-Nevada border, miles away from any town. Had a pretty good time and went to sleep in the bed of my truck. I woke up at some time in the night to a bright light like daytime, but it was a white light, nothing like sunlight. It lit up the treetops around us and was casting a shadow into the bed of my truck. So I sat up to see what it was. I remember thinking it was a spotlight from a DNR truck or hunters. Then blackness, and I'm awake. And it's the crack of dawn. I'm lying down again in the truck bed. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people will suggest sleep paralysis. I assure you that this is the only time in my life that anything like that has happened. Being almost a decade later, I still haven't experienced anything like it. So in my old neighborhood, there was this garage sale that I decided to go to, and because I was a child, I of course found a porcelain doll that I really liked. Yeah, I know, I'm basically a horror movie character in the making. I got my parents to buy it because why not? Fast forward 2 years later, while moving into the new house, I had accidentally broken one of its legs, and I never got around to fixing it because I didn't really play with it or anything anymore. So I just put it in a box on a shelf in my closet, where it is to this day. Now, this happened about 3 years later. One day my family and I decided to go for a walk in a park nearby, but my mom decided to stay home for a reason I don't remember. So we had left to go to the park almost immediately after I'd woken up, so I didn't get the chance to make my bed yet. So when we get back, I go upstairs to do some homework, and I get greeted with the sight of this doll sitting on the top of my neatly made bed. And on top of that, its leg is now fixed. Okay, no biggie. My mom just probably made my bed and for whatever reason found the doll, fixed it, and put it on my bed. And I would have found this sweet, if not for the fact that after I asked my mom about it, she said she had gone grocery shopping, with the newly bought groceries as proof, and had no clue about the doll. So yeah, I put it back in the box, covered it with salt, and it now stays in my closet because my mom doesn't want me burying it because she's very religious and says it could make the situation worse. But now I hear tapping noises in my closet at night that are most definitely a human finger. So, okay, Mom, just let your daughter become possessed by a mysterious doll thing. But I mean, it wasn't completely horrible. At least it made my bed for me. More so unexplainable than creepy, but every year since my grandma had unexpectedly passed away in a car accident, my family would hold a traditional feast on my grandmother's native reserve. If you don't know what a feast is, it's basically a traditional ceremony in honor of someone's life. At this feast, you have friends and family all gathered around in a large circle, with food, snacks, and fruit, all in the center. After prayers and words from elder men, usually pass out the food to everyone, making sure that everyone gets something. Anyway, after all the food has been passed out, which consisted of various different kinds of soups, different pops, bannock, fruits, cookies, cake, and candies, there were a few family members and close friends that were invited to say a few words about my grandma. After my papa, my other grandmother, and a close family friend had said their words, it was time for one of the aunts to say her words. But suddenly, once she started to speak, the lights flickered in the building, everyone kind of murmured, and my aunt continued to speak, but this time her voice was a little more shaky. Then again, the lights flickered. But this time the power went out completely. We all reacted, of course. How would you when the power were to go out, but someone made the comment, "She's here"? This kind of made a few people laugh, but my aunt was so freaked out, all she said was, "Haha, yes, Linda was an amazing woman, and we all miss her every day, thank you," and sat down quickly. I like to think that maybe my grandma was there, and maybe she didn't really know was trying to speak to us, but maybe the power just went out because of how windy and cold it was that day. No matter the case, I still remember that day clear as ever. There was a house down the street near my bus stop. It had been abandoned for years, and I saw many squatters passing in and out of it. Kids at my stop started making rumors about it, saying it was haunted and other homeless people were allowed to enter because a hobo died inside the house. My sister and I thought it would be a good idea to test the theories out. Boy, were we wrong. We went to the house on Saturday and walked onto the property. I had a nervous feeling about just stepping onto its grounds. We walked up to the house and tried to open the door. It wouldn't budge. It was locked. We went around the house and found a back door. It was unlocked. We went inside, and I kid you not, the house reeked of mold and rot. There were so many insects, both dead and living, scattered on the walls and floors. We kept walking in the house, looking around. My sister's flashlight at that point had been having issues. It finally gave out, and she left it on the dusty table covered in leaves. This was a key note I made in my head, since the flashlight was our dad's. The halls were narrow and old, with wallpaper faded and peeling off. We heard random banging in the house, and every time we looked for the source of the noise, there was nothing in sight. Tired and sick of the stench, we decided to leave. We went back to the kitchen to get the flashlight. It was on the kitchen counter, 4 feet away from the dusty table. Someone had to have picked it up and put it there. There were no signs of forced entry, and we shut the door upon entering. No one was in the house with us, that we heard the door slam. It wasn't the back door either. It was the front door. It was not physically possible to open that door because the lock was busted inside, so it couldn't open without heavy force. My sister and I freaked the hell out and ran our scared asses back home. What was even scarier was that we forgot our dad's flashlight. Okay, so I get a little up if I think too hard about this, but I have a bipolar disorder and I hallucinate. So I often dismiss anything I experience as hallucination. It's just easier to process that way. A few years ago, my family and I moved into a new home into a neighborhood that was rumored to be built on Native American grounds. Growing up, I thought that was all shit, and as an adult, I still thought it was shit. One night, I was lying down in my mini basement apartment, and I swear to God it sounded like someone with heavy footsteps jumped through the window and ran at me full speed. I froze and convinced myself I was hallucinating. This happened 4 times before I mentioned it to my boyfriend, and he confirmed that he would lie there and think he was having a night terror, or whatever, and then just dismiss it. Now, I don't know what to think of it. It hasn't happened in over a year. I learned that the dude who develops the properties out here has found artifacts in a couple of the lots, and that those lots can't be developed. So maybe there is some validity to those claims. I don't know, but I can't explain the footsteps. It happened about 15 years ago. I was visiting my great aunt with my grandma and my great uncle. Ga, my great aunt, lived in a rural area in Korea. She lived with her granddaughters, both a few years older than me. We call them YNS. We get there and hang out till nighttime. We gathered around for dinner when I noticed something on the floor. It was between 2 door frames. Rooms were right next to each other. It was fuzzy, but definitely a picture of a lady. Long hair, lips, etc. Like a driver's license picture. I pointed out to GA and asked what it is. She clearly does not want to answer and dismissed the question. I run my thumb over it to make sure it's not some dust or whatever that could coincidentally be there to make it look like a face. It's imprinted on the floor. Time goes on, and I and Y are hanging out, watching TV. S is sleeping in the room that's on the left side of the picture. Y, being older than me, suggests that we both go to sleep. We both go to the room where S is sleeping in. Lights out. I couldn't sleep, and I dozed after about an hour of tossing and turning. Suddenly, through my closed eyes, I can tell that there's some sort of light. I open my eyes to see some sort of figure surrounded by bluish light in the top left side of the corner of where we were sleeping. And then I heard a woman's voice in the room. Both stopped quickly. I'm freaked out and realize S was awake. I ask her, "Did you hear that? What was that?" She said, "It must have been great, Uncle." He's a known alcoholic. I ask, did you see the blue thing? S. What blue thing? Me. There was some sort of blue thing in the corner. S. I think you're just imagining stuff. Go back to sleep. She wasn't awake to see the blue light, so I assumed it was the sound that woke her up. Come morning, I realized my great-uncle wasn't even on the same floor. We were in the basement. GA, GU, and GM were all drinking and slept on the first floor. I go to look where the picture was. Gone. No trace of the fuzzy picture of a lady whom GA denied to answer any questions about. But she clearly knew something. We were there for another night, and nothing happened that night. I didn't say a single word about the incident to anyone. Another notable thing here is that the GA side of the family, well, mainly her, definitely dabbled in Korean shamanism. I don't believe in paranormal whatsoever. However, whenever I think back to this experience, it always tells me there could be another explanation. A quick backstory before I get into it. The house that I live in right now is quite old, built in the 40s or 50s, and my parents bought it when I was only a few years old, so we've lived in it for a really long time. This means that I have a lot of stories from both my perspective and my family's perspective. I and my siblings, my mom, and other family members have sworn that we've heard, seen, and felt people in the house for years. When I and my little brothers were really young, my older cousin was over babysitting. She was only 12 or 13 at the time, and we decided to play hide and seek. So she turned all the lights off, and we went off to find us. While she was searching for us, she heard a woman's voice screaming bloody murder from downstairs. Just to remind you, it was only my cousin, me, and my little brothers. There would be no way for anyone to get in the house. It scared the absolute shit out of her, and we all hid out in my room until my parents came home 2 hours later. My cousin later checked, and there was no one downstairs. A couple years later, I was cleaning up our bathroom, which took about an hour or so. As I finished, it was about 1:30 a.m. My mom woke up, and so did my younger brother, Andrew. So at this point, I'm awake and hyper, and it's the weekend. So I say, "Get," and I decide to go down the stairs to get a Coke. When I literally just about to go down the stairs, a middle-aged woman's voice loudly exclaimed, "Hello?" It scared the absolute shit out of me, and I didn't go downstairs for about a week. Andrew, a few days later, was about to go downstairs when he heard the woman's voice too. He described it as a middle-aged woman's voice. Same thing I heard. My mom has heard that voice too. All three of us are still super wary of downstairs now. My last story takes place in about January-ish of the year 2019. I was babysitting my brothers while my parents were out getting groceries, and I and Andrew were just kind of chilling in the living room. My youngest brother, Benjamin, was in the room doing his own thing, so he didn't really get to witness what we both did. The living room is connected to the kitchen, and you need to go through the kitchen to go downstairs. So both of us were chilling when we heard really loud footsteps coming from the stairs to go downstairs. So I'm like, what the We're definitely the only ones home. My brother hears it at the same time as me. So both of us start freaking out. So I yell out if someone's there, and no one responds. The footsteps stopped temporarily, but resumed after a minute or so. So both I and my brother are freaking out, right? And we watched the stairs from our couch to see if someone was there. But no one was there. My parents came home a few minutes later, but it was the freakiest thing since both of us witnessed it and heard the exact same thing. No one was in the house except for us. It still scares the shit out of both of us to this day.